Welcome to The Hidden Load, the podcast where we uncover the unseen weight carried by the educators and leaders in medicine and explore how to lighten it. I am Dr. Santina or Tina Wheat. I am a family physician, an educator, a leader, and a coach. Each week, we will dig into the challenges that often go unspoken, from burnout and boundaries to purpose and identity to figuring out sustainability, and share practical tools to help you move from chaos to calm and from burnout to balance. Because the hidden load does not have to be yours to carry alone, and in fact, shouldn't be. Let's get started. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to The Hidden Load for the educators and leaders in medicine. I am your host, Dr. Santina or Tina Wheat. I am a family physician, an educator, and a coach. And this space is where we talk honestly about the unseen weight that we carry in healthcare and how we can show up with purpose, compassion, and balance. Today is episode number 11, and it is all about resilience, a word that gets tossed around a whole lot in medicine. I'm sure that many of you can agree with me and say that you've been told to build it, to teach it, and to embody it. But I have been thinking lately about what resilience really truly means, and also what it really doesn't mean. Because sometimes the way that we talk about resilience ends up causing more harm than good. So we want to think about it in a way that is actually helpful. So let's start with what it really means. When you hear the word resilience, I'm curious what comes to mind. For the longest time, I thought of resilience as a toughness. It was that ability to push through, to keep going no matter what. Thinking of that image of the physician who just never stops, who just absorbs whatever comes and keeps working. And this was me in oh so many ways. It was taking the extra shifts, showing up even on the days that I felt bad or was up all night with my children or my mother when she was sick. Finishing that project that maybe didn't even need to be done by the time that I thought I did, just because I thought that working through it would prove that I was strong enough to be doing this job. But over time, I have learned that that is not resilience. What I was experiencing was survival mode. Resilience, it is not about enduring everything. True resilience is about recovering. It's not about never failing. It is about being able to get yourself back up, to adapt to the situation, and to bend without breaking, or to be flexible. According to the American Psychological Association, resilience is the ability to recover from or adapt to adversity, trauma, and stress, something that we face a lot in medicine. Resilience involves mental, emotional, and behavioral flexibility in order to navigate those challenges and be able to bounce back from the setbacks, and sometimes even to be able to grow from those setbacks. Importantly, in this definition, resilience is not an innate trait. So it's not that you have resilience or you don't. But resilience is a skill that can actually be learned and developed over time through behaviors and thought processes. That is a really exciting thing to know, because that means even if you don't feel resilient right now, there are things that you can do to help yourself become more resilient, or there's things that you can help your learners and your teams to do to help them. Now, in healthcare, we often mistake endurance for resilience. We celebrate the ones who just push through. We celebrate the ones who take on more and more without any complaint. But pushing through everything, well, it doesn't make you stronger. Sometimes it just makes you even more exhausted. So now that we know what resilience is, why does it matter? And why does it matter, especially in medicine, education, and in leadership? Well, because the work that we do, it is deeply human. We are constantly navigating the uncertainty, the loss, the disappointment, and constant change. And we're often doing this while caring for others who are doing the same. As a family physician, I go from sharing a new diagnosis to hearing from my patient that their family member died. As an educator, I help a learner who gets a difficult test score or has to process difficult feedback. And although those things aren't happening to me, all of that weighs on me too, just like those experiences also weigh on you. And when we have resilience, it gives us flexibility. That flexibility allows us to stay connected to our purpose, even when things are hard. Again, it helps us manage those setbacks, but it also allows us to respond to feedback and to stay open instead of shutting down. And that is something that is so important in a career where in order to keep up, you have to constantly grow. When there isn't resilience, the stress just piles up, and it piles up kind of like a sediment, layer after layer after layer. And as that stress piles up, it reaches this point where even the smallest of challenges feels insurmountable. Now, resilience doesn't erase the bad days or the hard days. It does not make you immune to burnout, to sadness, or to frustration. But resilience gives you the tools to navigate each of those things with more self-awareness and, importantly, less self-judgment. Now, we've just talked about what resilience is and why it's important, particularly for those of us in medicine. But let's talk a little bit more about what resilience isn't, because this is where things often go wrong in our culture, meaning the culture of medicine. Now, resilience isn't working longer hours when you are already depleted, like when I mentioned taking those extra call shifts. Resilience isn't taking on just one more thing because something else is struggling. It is okay to lean on your team and be the person who your team can lean on. But you can't take all of those things just because you want to prove that you're tough enough. Resilience also is not smiling through situations that are unhealthy or unsafe. It also isn't pretending that everything is fine, especially when it is clearly not fine. I'm sure that these are all things that many of us in medicine have done and looked upon them as, oh, that was me being resilient. But it's not. And resilience isn't something that we can summon on command when the systems around us are broken. And this is where I feel like resilience has been thrown in our face and sometimes gotten a bad rap. Because I think many of us have experienced the frustration of hearing the feedback of, oh, you just need to be more resilient, as if burnout or overwhelm are personal failings instead of reflections of a larger system that often asks too much and support too little. When we get the type of feedback that you just need to be more resilient without talking about how the systems need to change or what other supports can be there, it doesn't build resilience. Unfortunately, it just deepens the shame of feeling like you can't get through. This feedback tells people that you should be able to handle this instead of providing the opportunity to share what support might be needed to help that individual. And so resilience isn't the need to just push through. Resilience is a series of intentional choices that you make to allow yourself to have the space and the flexibility to respond in those hard times. So let's talk about some of those intentional choices that can build resilience. Let's talk about what really helps. So, resilience really does grow from intentional strategic choices, not from accidental endurance. And I do want to share a few that I have found meaningful, both for myself and also for the people that I have coached and for the people that I have taught. The first is rest as recovery, not as a reward. We've already had a whole episode about recovery. And so if you haven't listened to that, I invite you to go back. Rest isn't something that you earn after you have hit a wall. It is something that sustains your ability to do meaningful work. So ensuring that you're protecting your sleep, ensuring that you're taking short pauses during the day, taking time to step away from your inbox to clear your mind. These are all acts of protecting your resilience. The second strategy is to reflect regularly. Resilience thrives when we make sense of our experiences. Reflection, even for 5 minutes, it helps us process emotions and also reconnect with our purpose. It shifts the story from, oh, I failed at this, to look at what I have learned. Again, there's a whole episode on reflection, so I invite you to go back and listen for the first time or re-listen to remind yourself of how you can reflect in meaningful ways. The third is to set boundaries clearly. Now, we also have had a whole episode on boundaries and boundaries without guilt. Saying no or saying not right now, well, it protects your energy for the things that do align with your values. Boundaries aren't barriers. They are clarity. Boundaries are saying yes to yourself and saying yes to your energy. Number 4 is to seek connection. Resilience isn't built in isolation. It is built in community, often through trusted colleagues, mentors, or friends who remind you that you are not alone in this work. That's why I'm sharing information with you on this podcast, to remind you that you are not alone in all of these challenges. And number 5 is to acknowledge the hard days. Even the most resilient people have days when it all feels heavy. Heavy days remind us that the good days are so good. Those heavy days don't mean that you're not resilient. They mean that you're human. The key is to let yourself feel it without staying stuck there. So resilience isn't just important for us. It's also important for our teams and for our learners. Because as educators and leaders, we also shape the environments where others are trying to grow their own resilience. So I ask you, how do we support that? How do we support it in our learners, in our colleagues, in our teams? Well, the first, normalize the struggle. When learners or teammates are having a hard time, instead of rushing to that reassurance, start with the validation. Yeah, that sounds tough. I have felt that too. It makes the space for honesty and authenticity instead of perfectionism. You can also model self-awareness. When you share how you manage your own challenges, like taking time to decompress after clinic or asking for help when you need it, you are able to show others that resilience is not about never faltering. It's also important to create psychological safety. You can do this by encouraging curiosity instead of a fear of failure. When people feel safe to ask questions and make mistakes and to fail forward, well, they are more likely to recover from their setbacks. And you can also shift the narrative. When we talk about resilience, let's make sure that we're not saying do more with less. Let's frame it as take care of yourself so that you can keep doing what matters the most and that you are using your energy to protect you. Because ultimately, resilience is not just an individual trait. Resilience is ultimately a collective responsibility. Now, as I wrap up today, I want to leave you with this thought. Resilience is not about being unbreakable. Resilience is about being able to bend. And part of that being able to bend is knowing when to rest, when to reach out, and when to rebuild. If you have been told to just be more resilient, I hope that you can instead ask, what kind of support would make that possible? And if you are leading others, then I hope that you remember that helping your team or learners build resilience starts with creating the conditions where they feel safe to be human. Because resilience, well, it's not a solo skill. It is something that we need to nurture in each other. I hope that this has been a helpful conversation about resilience. And in our next episode, I will be joined by a guest, Mary Ramon, to talk about something that is closely related, and that is asking for help. We will dive into what makes asking for help so hard in medicine, and we will unpack some practical ways that you can use employee assistance programs, also known as EAPs, as tools for real confidential support. This is a conversation that I'm really looking forward to sharing, and I think it will tie beautifully in today's discussion about resilience and connection. Thank you so much for joining me today on The Hidden Load. And if today's episode resonated with you, I would love for you to share it with a colleague or a friend who might need the reminder that resilience doesn't mean doing it all alone. And until next time, take care of yourselves and each other. Thanks for joining me on The Hidden Load. Tag me on Instagram at Dr. Tina Wheat or email me at santina@santinawheat.com with your takeaways and ideas. Don't forget to subscribe. And until next time, let's lighten your hidden load.